My name is Sean. I'm a solutions engineer here at Pax8. And with me is the handsome as always, James Davis, or as I like to affectionately call him, my mentor Seahorse. Uh, we'll be running through a bit around email security regarding some thought leadership into how the situation is evolving. The landscape of cyber threats is, as you know, something quite hard to keep up with these days. As threat actors get smarter, the solutions get smarter too. It's a bit of a cat and mouse game. James Davis is our director of academy. Personally, someone that I've been very lucky to work alongside with and get a huge understanding into the MSP world. I feel like I'm not even 1% of the way there, but James has been excellent in helping me learn as much as I can. I'll let you take it all away, James.
Well, most people know me, so let's dive in and talk about why we're here. And if you stop and think about where we've come from, most of us as MSPs, we've had some form of email security for probably at least the last a decade. It became very normal for us to provide decent spam filtering back around the early 10s, so 2010 through to about 2014. It got very normal. Then we shifted to Office 365 as our email platform, and we've all embedded our solutions back then. And when I talk to partners all the time, most people haven't reviewed their email security, and that's why we're doing this webinar. And what I want to start you with is this sort of quote from Deloitte, and you'll hear it from a lot of other places as well. It's like 91% of cyber attacks begin with a phishing email to an unexpected victim. And you'll hear different numbers, around 90 to 92% of the attack vectors are coming through email. So it's a super critical point. And I want to take you through a journey today quickly at a high level of framing up how you think about email security so you can renew your practices and become more modern. So if you think about it, the reason why there's so many things start from the email is there's so many different types of attacks. And I'm not going to go through each one of these threats, but these were the ones that come up off the top of my head very quickly when I was thinking about all the different types of threats that were coming from emails and the things that affect our clients the most. And they're varied and they're different, and each one requires a different mitigation strategy and a different way of reducing risk, a different way, potentially different tools, different thoughts and practices. And if we move on to the what the crux of email security is, there's really 5 high-level key components that I want you to think about. There's the anti-spam filtering. So it's, that filtering side that we've traditionally known to reduce the amount of rubbish that's coming into the user's email. That it reduces the risk on its own. But the more modern solutions aren't just doing filtering, and I'll take you through that shortly. The other one's secure accounts. We need to actually secure the account to prevent against different kinds of threats that were listed before. Email record configuration is a big one that's very forgotten, and we'll explore that in a bit. Data protection is another one, whether it's malicious or accidental. And then the big one is awareness training as well. And so what we'll do is walk through each individual section in a second, but I want to bring it back to the frameworks and the control references. We at Pax8 are very big on getting everyone to stop reinventing the wheel and looking at the frameworks that are out there. And if you've heard me talk about these before, the Essential 8, our ASD Top 37, it's ideal for sales and marketing with your clients. It's something that the government's done a huge amount of effort to put it out there as a standard, but it's not a very good operational practice, whereas CIS controls are very prescriptive, very detailed. ISO is becoming more important with insurance, and then just to have NIST there as a reference point, because that's where a lot of the vendors talk about. So you see just on this slide deck how many controls in these frameworks that I just picked out on a quick glance and put it in as an example. you can see how many controls are covered by email security and the 5 components that I just spoke about. So it's a really important area as we go through this section. So let's just dive in a bit and talk about filtering. Most of us, like I said, we've been doing this for a long time. We've had some solutions, but there's a difference between our old school spam filtering and the more modern day email filtering. You know, we're used to the old school spam digest, we're used to the spam reporting, and even the block lists. But the more modern solutions have URL and link analysis and image analyzing the images and empowering more of the user to be more intuitive with what is legitimate and what's spam email in ways that they can manage it. You know, things like email sandboxing, so they can, when they get their spam digest, they can actually view what's in the email and have a look at it, not just have a subject headline that they click to release or not. And it's things like that while we're used to it, we're still very stuck in those sort of old school thought processes, because most of us got super cheap spam filtering solutions. And for many of us, we bake that into our managed services agreements as not even an add-on, it's just as a bundled deal. And because we might have been paying $1 or $2 for these old school spam filters per user, we feel a bit trapped that these modern solutions are a bit pricier, but they provide more protection. So what I would look at doing is thinking about the increasing prices for one, but if that's really difficult, is to look at it as a risk mitigation measure, that you sacrifice a little bit of margin if possible to reduce the risks of the remediation work and the reputational damage when it comes to filtering. So the next one I want to point out is us securing the accounts. And this is something that I thought would be a given, but what scared me a couple of weeks ago, we went and did a partner event in Auckland, and Elliot asked the question, how many people enforce MFA on their M365 accounts? And at 3 of 30 people put their hand up to say they do it. And that's a bit of an extreme example, but we're seeing a trend that the majority of people do not even do that simple baseline hygiene around multi-factor authentication on their email accounts. And that's a huge attack vector. It's one of the most common attacks that I'm seeing is those email compromises from the breaching of accounts, and it could have been prevented by us enforcing a decent standard. So some of these we're talking about don't even have a cost and don't necessarily have a huge labor burden to put in place, but many of us are avoiding doing it because it impacts the client. It is a little bit of work where we don't really know what the standards are, but these are the things that we need to put in place. And multi-factor authentication as a really good example. We just need to do it. There's a reason why it's becoming a Microsoft security default, because it is such a big threat vector. And what we've got to get over is the worry of clients pushing back. I know people will go, oh, I've got XYZ client that their CEO doesn't want it on their account, but they're the one at the biggest risk. So we need to be more professional and say this is a baseline standard that is not negotiable. It's just done. It's like a seatbelt in a car. And this flows on through things like secure web browsing, the secure printing and scanning. So I see often that people turn MFA off for that and don't have a modern solution to deal with accounts on printers and scanners, and they get breached and they cause a whole lot of issues. Same thing with enabling things like self-service password reset along MFA to reduce our risk. It increases the account security. And things like regularly reviewing the accounts in the system. If we've got zombie accounts and no one's really looking at it and maintaining it, they can be at high risk of breach and being used for nefarious purposes. So it's, again, using the accounts as an example, a lot of these are low-cost options to reduce the risk and increase the email security standards. That then flows on to email record setups. And what I thought was a given with a lot of things still aren't. So things like us as MSPs owning the DNS hosting, as an example, a lot of people still leave it to the web developers to manage the DNS for clients. They don't have a security practice. They don't undertake change control. And it's an easy way for us to capture some easy to generate revenue while increasing some security. And there's email record setups like SPF and DKIM and DMARC. A lot of people, obviously, you have to do the SPF records. A lot of people don't set them up correctly, and let alone people aren't using things like DKIM, and barely anyone's using DMARC. And these are all very important records to improve the security and the integrity of the email. If more of us had our clients set up this way, the fewer nefarious emails could come from legitimate sources. But very few of us do it as a matter of practice. The other one is the email forwarding rules. I'm still surprised that very few of us actually monitor 365 to see what email forwarding rules are set up against our tenancies in the mailboxes. It's still an extremely common way, especially from an email account breach, that the email forwarding rules don't get monitored. So someone gets breached, all these rules get out, all of a sudden there's more nefarious emails going out of the system because we don't have the best practice email record setups either. So again, a lot of these are quite cost effective for us to do. We can charge revenue for things like our DNS hosting and domain name management. We should be setting up SPF and DKIM by default anytime we're taking on a client or doing a project for them. And DMARC is something that you can add on as another added benefit as well. So a lot of this standards flow into, again, the protecting the data. You know, I'm still seeing the majority of people don't have backups of their emails. Now that we've moved to 365, it's like we've forgotten all about data integrity and the issues that we can have. And often it's because we don't want to charge the client another $5 or $7 a month, where it can protect us from malicious acts from employees deleting all their emails. It can protect from the disappearing emails when it does happen. It doesn't know what, you know, Microsoft's pretty good at holding the data integrity, but things happen. Those things like email archiving and legal hold is also another matter of protection, because as people cycle in and out of the business, we need to maintain that data over a long time, and more data is being kept in emails as we share files, as we share critical things. A lot of industries have regulation on the amount of the length of data that needs to be held depending on the type of data that it is. So there's an opportunity there for us to make additional revenue, but also improve the outcomes for our clients. Things like data loss protection and sensitivity labels and encryption. So that's a different level, but this is where a conversation can be had based on the type of work that people are doing. Is there sensitive data that's in the emails that are being sent? Is there PII, things like that we can use to protect against malicious acts, but also from accidental issues around someone sending a sensitive document out to far too many people. And it's things like that we need to be better at. And it comes from a lot of our background of just keeping the lights on. We haven't had to worry about the application, what the data is itself. We've always just worried about the infrastructure and making sure that the overall operations are in place. As that gets commoditized and there's changing needs from our clients and changing regulations, this is the stuff that we have to get much better at. And finally, the one that I would consider the most important is end user awareness training. We've oversimplified this because we're technical people. We've gone straight to getting some tools, chucking it at it, thinking that will solve all the social problems. And what I'm trying to do is fight the crusade to think about this as not just a not just as a necessity, but it's a key area that we can evolve our businesses in as the traditional MSP services are commoditizing. We can lift ourselves up the value chain. So when we're looking at the tools that do the security awareness training, I typically phrase that as it's online compliance training. There's good tools, they have some good information, but really what it is taking a record of have they done what they're supposed to do and watched it. That doesn't mean the users are capable of actually putting that into practice. So we need to do things like phishing simulations to test them out and give them real world safe opportunities to make mistakes and learn from it. We need policy and procedure on how to better utilize the technology, but also what's our policies and procedure on the type of data and how it's shared, and our password policies and our access policies, etc. Then there's real opportunity around actual face-to-face sort of instructor-led training. You know, we're doing it at the moment. I'm able to talk to you guys and give you some information. That's something you can charge for. But the real secret sauce is reporting and accountability on all of this. People naturally get complacent. People don't see the value in some things, but being able to report on the success of your phishing simulations, what the policies and procedures are, how training is going, and then being able to hold it to account the end users through that sort of training and instructor-led, but also informing the management and the executive on where their people sit so they can either spend more time protecting themselves and reducing risk, or knowing that they're okay at the moment and having a continual learning journey. So there's so many opportunities of what I've just said, opportunities for us to improve our practices so we reduce risk off the bat. There's opportunities in terms of increased revenue and margin from modernizing how you deliver just email security as a whole. So what I want you to do out of this is obviously review your solution. That's why you're here. You're trying to learn and see things differently. We need to refresh our packages. Like I said, most of us have bundled in anti-spam as a default, and we're stuck and locked in and can't change. We need to change our approach with our packages for delivering to clients. And often the best way to do that is to split out our labor effort and our subscriptions and educate our clients that we're taking them on their journey, and things will change in the future. This is not a set and forget, sell a package and don't modify it or improve it in the next 10 years like we did with managed services. We need to get better at that. And then we need to implement the changes. If there's some stuff that I picked out, like MFA, if at this point you haven't enforced MFA on your clients, you've probably missed the boat on making money off it from a project perspective, and you just need to turn the bloody thing on. But those best practices that don't cost you anything are going to reduce your risk yourself on your managed services margins. It's also going to lead to better risk mitigation steps for your clients. And if you're not proactively going out and doing this stuff with clients and telling them about it and educating them and then showing the improved security score, they're going to be looking for someone else. I'm already seeing it. Clients are churning out because their MSPs aren't mature, they're not proactive, and they're going out to market like they never have before. So much opportunity, but only if you go and take it. So hopefully this has helped and enlightened you. I'll pass it over to Sean to talk through the solutions.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. That's actually been some brilliant insight, James, for me to take into my personal side of things and my further learning in email security. There's a lot to the MSP side that I don't know, but great food for thought there. Just give everyone a baseline of what I'll be going through with you today. We're just going through a bit of a history of email security, the evolution of the technology and where we are now. James has absolutely touched on why it's important, and I've just got a couple of things I'd like to touch on myself. I'm going to run you through the solutions on our line card as well. There's not a one size fits all approach for any solution. We'll talk about the options, what they're best for, and the ideal customer profile behind those, as well as talking a bit on DMARC, DKIM, and SPF. So right away off the bat, I'm sure you all know how email security works. They'll get to humour me through this. It's a very nice way to create a baseline of how different technologies work. But I mean, the start of email security was we had an on-premises mail server that was locked away in a bit of a cupboard, generating a lot of heat, and it was receiving a lot of spam emails. So the solution was to put another piece of hardware alongside it in that room, do a couple MX record changes, and as you can see, email would flow through. And this technology was fantastic for getting rid of spam. It would deliver clean emails through to the on-premises mail server, where our end users would then interact with the email. However, this technology wasn't good enough for viruses and phishing as threat actors evolved past spam. It was in front of the email server. It was prevention based, but just not good enough in terms of actual security. Great for spam once again. We then migrated our on-premises mail servers to the cloud with things like Office 365 Mail and Gmail, which we see also. And the Secure Email Gateway did the same thing where it became cloud-based. Once again, it's still prevention-based, does require MX record changes. And the way this works is email is sent and directed to that Secure Email Gateway, which is now filtering for phishing, malware, malicious URLs on top of the spam filtering. And we'd create rules to bypass default security, allowing that email to land in the inbox where our end users would then interact with it. An analogy I like to use is it's kind of like going to the airport. You go through that first layer of security. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for your, any flammable aerosols that you may have in your luggage, and they're going to stop you before you get into the gateways at the airport. So Secure My Gateway is like having that robust layer of security, prevention-based, and this is how a lot of big competitors in the space are working, such as Proofpoint, Mimecast, and Barracuda. They're a familiar technology, they're reputable, they've been around a long time, and they also offer baked-in continuity services. So we'll see a lot of the time with Secure My Gateways, if your cloud email environment does go down, despite the service level agreements being insane these days, a Secure My Gateway will allow you to send and receive emails like nothing ever happened, which is great for business continuity. And then we have the second kind of technology that's introduced when it comes to email security, and that's APIs, or Application Program Interface. Now, they work very differently to the Secure My Gateway, where your Secure My Gateway is outside the environment and very prevention-based. An API is living inside your environment. It's integrated directly. And the way it works is emails flow through and are scanned by default security, or ATP if you have that set up. And then once it lands in the inbox, typically, it is then picked up by the API and scanned. It's scanned for all the works as well, phishing, viruses, malware, the works. And one thing I do really like about this model is, although it has completely shifted the market in terms of how security is thought about in terms of cloud email, they are introducing AI into these solutions. So that means they do metadata scans, they learn how the environments are used prior to making decisions. It's a huge reduction in total cost of ownership and initial deployment. However, training AI does take a bit more time, is stretched out over time, as opposed to your Secure My Gateway, which you're setting up initially. It does have a larger investment up front, but it's usually a set and forget sort of thing. When it comes to email security, your Secure My Gateways are ideal for, they can protect any environment, whether it's hybrid, on-premises, or cloud-based, whereas your APIs can protect hybrid or cloud-based environments. So it's really important to know that if you are protecting any on-premises environments, you do really need to consider the Secure My Gateway, as the API solutions just won't tick the box there. So as James touched on earlier, 91% of breaches, or 91% of threats are coming through as a phishing attack on an employee, whereas we're seeing 90% of breaches are a result of phishing attacks. They're tremendously effective, and that's why they're so popular. Humans are too trusting, right? If you see someone in the street that needs help, you're likely to maybe be a bit inclined to help, hopefully. And the same thing goes for our end users in terms of emails. They are too trusting, and that's why we need things like security awareness training. However, if you're investing all your time into remediating these threats and you don't have, if you haven't reviewed your email security in a while and it's just not cutting it, you're likely spending 23% of your time managing email security tickets. That could be restore requests, investigating true or false positives. And let's be honest, time is money. If we're investing all of our technicians' time into tickets that aren't business critical or could be reduced through alternative solutions and better configurations, we are able to scale our business a lot better because we're able to invest that technician time into more business critical tasks. Quite frankly, due to the high number of time involved by technicians in terms of email security and the popularity of phishing by threat actors, email security is a low-hanging fruit when it comes to your business and introducing better security offerings and looking after your clients, because there's many solutions out there that can help you manage that better through efficiency gains and reducing risk. So we're going to go through a couple of solutions on our line card here in terms of native email security, starting with an API solution called IronScales. So IronScales is built on 3 pillars, as you can see here: impersonation protection. Uses a phishing emails. Well, they spot highly sophisticated phishing emails to detect things like business email compromise, which is a very popular attack vector, as well as things like whaling attacks. They've built this artificial intelligence that learns through a metadata scan. It scans the last 90 days of emails within your environment, understanding how senders and receivers are using their email environments. And this then trains the impersonation protection to identify things like if an email has been sent from a new domain or someone's using quite a similar name to someone else in the organization. They've got their AI-powered incident response through Themis. It's an autonomous solution that will identify emails as it lands in the inbox, and using their community, which we'll talk on shortly, it's able to identify the likelihood of phishing and mitigate it. As we can see here, Themis was able to identify that on a percentage basis, this is 60% likely to be phishing, and it can automate response depending on how you've configured that. And then community, they've built a full community of everyone using IronScales. The beauty behind this is that if you're not being attacked, right, which is ideal, if our customers aren't having phishing land in their inbox, if the AI is not learning from other people that are being targeted, then we've got a pretty bad sample. We're not able to protect our environments because they're not being attacked enough. With their community, anyone that is using IronScales that is getting phishing or malware sent to them, when it's identified as phishing or malware, that trains their engines that then goes back to your environments also. And if someone does get attacked and a similar attack happens to you, if this attack has been seen before, although it's slightly different, they are able to identify that. And it's essentially like having a full community, almost like a Reddit group, I suppose, of dedicated to identifying phishing and passing that information on. So IronScales has an abundance of features that they bake in. There's really a lot of core hexagons here. But I just want to touch on their advanced malware and URL protection. It's something that I'm quite impressed by. So when an attachment comes into an environment, we're seeing a popularity spike in zero-day malware, as our traditional kind of email security vendors haven't transitioned or moved into the ability to start sandboxing. We're seeing the solutions we're talking about today are introducing that. With advanced malware and URL protection, they're actually uploading and sandboxing these files in a plethora of different antivirus solutions based on Checkpoint, Bitdefender, VirusTotal, and they also use Google's safe browsing and web risk. And this allows you to have multiple avenues of investigation, right? There's no such thing as a perfect antivirus engine that's going to find 100% of threats. So they're spreading that across all their environments or all the engines they can use, and really flagging if one vendor is picking it up over the other, and using that information all together to create verdicts and respond in real time to quarantine phishing, or allow their virtual SOC analyst, Themis, which is the Greek god of good counsel, by the way, and allowing those automated decisions to happen, reducing, once again, our technicians' investment in responding to threats and investigation. A huge benefit to this API solution or IronScales is integration is seamless. It's insanely quick. In the onboarding calls I've done with partners at Pax8 who have opted to go with the IronScales solution, we're able to roll it out in a few minutes and set it all up. It's very easy, and that's one of the huge benefits of API is because there isn't that initial investment of time for creating rules and connectors in Exchange Online Protection or Exchange Admin Center. You can really roll out security faster. It's also a very holistic security tool when it comes to email security. As we can see here, this is a breakdown of their key licenses here, or SKUs. All licenses have that 90-day historical scan to understand how senders and receivers are using this email environment. But they've also got security awareness training built into all packages, which I think is tremendously important. And as James highlighted, our end users are, quite frankly, the reason we are being attacked and the attacks are successful, right? You don't want just that compliance side of things where you're just doing their online training and not putting in practice. So with the phishing simulations, sending emails out to the end users and having them report them, and actually you give them a score with IronScales. So if they're correctly identifying phishing emails, even if it's not a simulation and it's a real phishing email, they report it and it gets deemed as true phishing, that user has a score that goes up, and the higher their score, the more reputable they are when it comes to reporting, and the more that their responses are taken as gospel. So you can actually kind of reward the users who are doing a good job in identifying those phishing simulations or phishing emails. Important to know as well, IronScales is build in advance. So you'll purchase your licenses through the Pax8 platform and assign them to all the mailboxes you're looking to protect. There are use cases where you may have a client that does have X amount and they don't want more or less, they don't want the scalability of the cloud. So this would be a great solution to roll out to them, because then you can give them that locked in fee, that consistency that they may be looking for. Moving on to Proofpoint, on the opposite end of the spectrum, using MX record changes for deployment. They are a secure email gateway, and Proofpoint is an enterprise-grade company that's come to the MSP market and brought their, quite frankly, industry-leading technology with them. They scan 1/4 of the world's emails, which, quite frankly, I think is the third behind Gmail or Google and Microsoft, as they're quite frankly getting all the world's email. So once again, you set up your MX record change and you create your rules and connectors. And one thing that I'm really proud to say about Proofpoint is they have been dedicated to simplifying the onboarding process. I'm sure many of you in this call today or this webinar have gone through the experience of doing an MX record change. It's either hit or miss. Some people don't mind them. Some people have a passionate hatred for them. But Proofpoint has done a fantastic job of creating what they've called an easy onboarding button, which we'll be seeing shortly. And that's going to simplify that onboarding process, creating the rules and connectors through automation. And all that's required on your end is doing the MX record changes and the DNS updates. Another huge thing that I'm very fond of when it comes to Proofpoint is their security and awareness training content is offered as a standalone. So you may have clients that are a hard sell. You may have clients that just want the security awareness training, not email security side of things. So it's not a bundled solution. You can have them separate. And the way that they build out this content for their security awareness training tool is any emails that come through their secure email gateway filtering and have been identified as true phishing actually get stripped down entirely and converted into these phishing simulations that you can then use on your end users. They've also implemented a Supernova artificial intelligence into their secure email gateway. Supernova is dedicated to identifying business email compromise. So business email compromise has become, once again, another trending attack method because it is so effective. We are using, there's a couple variants of it, but it's using similar domains to message, a domain with one letter off to really build that trust, impersonate a user, or even breach an account and start sending emails from a legitimate domain and start sending them maliciously. So the Supernova artificial intelligence engine has been trained specifically on identifying all these different variations of business email compromise and using that information to prevent it from reaching an end user's inbox and really mitigating or reducing the risk of damage to to your businesses and your clients' reputation based on their domain sending malicious emails. So I do want to point out the security awareness training tool. This, once again, is something that Proofpoint is quite frankly outstanding in. Regional content is so important, right? If you're using a security awareness training tool and it's sending you emails from Chase Bank, or if I received a phishing email from the IRS, quite frankly, I wouldn't bat an eye before I deleted it. I've never been to America, don't even have an American bank, I've never paid taxes in America. I'm not going to fall victim to that. But quite frankly, if the Australian Tax Office sent me an email, I'm likely to give it a second look. I don't mind getting my tax return back. I don't mind, this year they've maybe paying a bit, but that's fine. Like it's all good because it's relevant regional content that's relevant to my life. When we're training our end users and we're using content that isn't relevant to them, they're not going to bat an eye. They're just going to report it, get their pat on the back, and move forward. They're not really learning. So here are two phishing emails from Proofpoint's environments. One is from their American content, which you can use, which we can see is from JP Morgan Chase. Quite frankly, it's a pretty good email that maybe Americans would fall for, but not quite people in the APAC region. However, Dan Murphy's, I feel like a lot of our end users are likely to give a second look at. Maybe they did order something and it's a good timing for this email to get sent out. One thing I was setting up security awareness training with a partner, and we found an ATO one that hit right after tax return time. So we actually set that up and sent it out to the clients. And I think the average capture rate or failure rate was about 12% on that. So we got a fair few people, and that opened the opportunity to have those discussions and build out content on identifying, through this the analysis of sender, message, attachment, and profile. So once again, a bit of a license breakdown here. Proofpoint is a usage-based product built in arrears, so it does give you that freedom of scalability, tailoring back and forth with licenses as need be. I've highlighted three of the SKUs, the plus SKUs here, as this is what they're moving into, and quite frankly, these are quite at a baseline when it comes to the threats we're seeing now. So you'll see anti-spam and antivirus filtering, that's a given. But what they've added with these plus packages is predictive URL defense, or sandboxing URLs, protection from zero-day URLs, as well as what we're seeing in the higher tier licenses is the one-click message pool. No such thing as a perfect email security tool. If a malicious email does land in the inbox, you have that ability to draw it out post-delivery, as well as that attachment defense sandboxing protection from zero-day threats. And as James Davis outlined earlier, archiving in those solutions are also very important. So there is that capability in the professional licenses. Now, every organization has a different level of acceptable risk. And you'll notice that the vast majority of email threats are consistent with the persistence of ransomware and business email compromise, as outlined by Trend Micro. So you do want to have those conversations with your clients around their understanding and their risk, but you also need to be that trusted advisor and build up what you're seeing in the landscape, the trends of threat actors, and being ahead of the curve. So this is a conversation you can absolutely have. And great customers for Proofpoint would be those looking for security awareness training with regional content, and they are looking for a protection for an on-premises mailbox. Proofpoint's a great option there because you do have that secure email gateway option. And they're a fantastic tool, a great team locally as well. So you do get some great local support. Now, Avanan is very different to how the traditional API method works. And what I can do here is highlight how it is different. So we saw that detection or post-delivery remediation API setup. Avanan has really broken the mold by being a prevention-based API. So in this instance, an email is sent through and scanned by default security, but instead of waiting for the email to land in the inbox, then be withdrawn for scanning, it is immediately picked up by the API, scanned across the threat cloud, which is looking, traditional antivirus, zero-day threat scanning, and the works there. And once it's deemed safe, delivering it into the inbox. Now, the second outlier here is that they integrate into a wealth of collaboration applications. As you can see here, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, Google Workspace, Dropbox, Citrix ShareFile. There's 10 SaaS applications here, patented inline protection. And it once again, the other benefit with the API, as it is with Ironscales, is seamless and quick integration. The metadata scanning that Avanan does is a bit aggressive though. They do a 13-month metadata scan, but it goes through the same ideology, learning how users are sending and receiving email, the types of attachments and communication they're using. And this is all used to train the AI on decision making. Now, Avanan does have a fantastic offering when it comes to creating a tenancy. So all these solutions will offer trials. Avanan does a 14-day proof of concept license. So this is 14 days of integrating the API. You leave it in monitor only mode, and every 7 days, it runs a security checkup report. And the idea behind this is you can integrate it alongside default security for EOP, or you're an existing solution, an existing secure gateway or API, and you can actually compare what is making it through those existing solutions and what's being picked up by Avanan. I'm a big fan of this. It's all good and proper to say to your clients, well, yep, 90% reduction phishing here, 20% here. It doesn't really mean anything to our clients, but when we can show them tangible metrics relevant to their environment, that really gives them food for thought. That shows them that it is important to them. They do have phishing that is making it through. They do have malware, and this allows us to have those conversations and be that a trusted advisor and a lot more of a stronger capability. So with all of these solutions, there are also NFRs that you can place into your environment. So if any is sticking out to you, you can absolutely try before you buy, and it makes sense to be able to do that. So I want to break down the licenses here. With Avanan, their base license is pretty much just a traditional antivirus filter, anti-spam and antivirus filter, preventing known malware and known URLs that are malicious from entering the environment. Whereas the Advanced Protect license is going to add that capability to protect from zero-day malware, zero-day URLs as well. Now, it is built in the same way as Proofpoint, where it is scalable, and both of them will bill you based on active users, whereas shared mailboxes are classified as functional accounts, so they're not billed for, but still protected, which is a huge benefit. And then, as we see here, there are a couple of options here for add-ons. The one I'd like to really highlight to everyone here is Incident Response as a Service. Now, we're familiar with EDRs, or Endpoint Detection and Response tools, having an MDR, or Managed Detection and Response service on top of that. A SOC team, or Security Operations Center, dedicated to managing those tickets on your behalf, freeing up time in your hands. Incident Response as a Service works in a very similar way. For any email security tickets or events that are generated, that gets created in a ticket to an internal SOC team at Avanan, once again, reducing workload on your technicians, creating efficiencies within your business, reducing risk because you do have dedicated analysts, and that way you can push forward. All of these solutions are going to help you identify areas for efficiency gains within your business and reducing risk, because they are great tools in terms of email security and awareness training. Avanan cannot protect on-premises mail environments. They don't have a security awareness training tool at the moment. So it is important to take this into consideration if you are looking for a solution to tick those boxes. We'll go through something soon to help you identify what is the best solution or what makes sense for you. Before we go there, I just want to talk a bit to DMARC, DKIM, and SPF. Once again, for anyone here that may be unaware, or if you just want to humor me, so DMARC is domain-based message authentication, reporting, and compliance. DKIM is domain key identified mail, and SPF is sender policy framework. With the growing popularity of business email compromise, impersonation, and spoofing, it's tremendously important we take serious consideration into setting these up so we can actually verify the integrity of emails, verify the legitimacy or the authenticity of the sender, and protect those environments a bit more in depth. For anyone that isn't too familiar with these, SPF is kind of like your email sender's ID. When an email is sent, a receiving server validates the IP address, and if it matches, the email is likely legitimate. Your DKIM is a digital signature added using a unique encrypted signature to every outgoing mail. The receiving server will verify the signature using a public key stored in your DNS records, and this ensures the integrity of the email. Now, what DMARC is doing is it's a policy enforcer. It's going to use those other two tools to verify that the sender is legitimate, the integrity of the email isn't in question, and it's going to allow you to create rules on if any of those fails. Do you quarantine that email? Do you prevent it from being sent? Do you flag it for further investigation? And this is going to reduce, the risk of illegitimate emails landing in your environment. They work in unison. They're fantastic to set up and tremendously important, but not enough people are doing it. I do want to highlight to you ValleyMail. So this is a platform built around the concept of DMARC. It's going to help you prevent email fraud by verifying the authenticity of senders as well as the integrity of emails. You effectively get to set up and protect your brand reputation and domains from being used for malicious purposes also. So simply by implementing DMARC through ValleyMail and using practices like SPF and DKIM, you can ensure that only legitimate email, or go through the process of ensuring that legitimate emails are delivered while fraudulent or unauthorized emails are stopped. A ValleyMail solution for DMARC is great for strengthening your email authentication and preventing domain spoofing and phishing attacks, but it is more considered as a complementary tool that would be best used in conjunction with the other email security tools we've spoken about today. So aside from this excruciatingly obvious email body that 9 out of 10 people would most likely flag as malicious, ValleyMail is able to identify that the domain is spoofed or it's not a legitimate sender through the SPF and DKIM lookup. It's going to enhance that email authentication practices, and the choice of whether to use ValleyMail alone or in combination with other tools depends on your organizational specific needs, but it's strongly recommended that you do it alongside an email security tool, and that way you've got a really robust defense and depth approach to email security. So I do want to just take you through a bit of a flowchart here that can help you identify what solution may be the best fit for you or worth looking into when it comes to email security. So once you've done your discovery or your annual review of your security solutions and it's time to consider something new, here's a couple questions you can ask yourself. Do you have any on-premises or hybrid exchange clients to protect? Do you want to protect collaboration applications, as 76% of organizations are now moving towards things like Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive? And do you require security awareness training tools? Now, you may have a security awareness training tool in play already. You may want to consolidate it. There's a lot of options here. If you ever want to have a discussion around what you need and your requirements and helping outline those key business criteria for success, please reach out to your account manager. They can book you in with a solutions engineer, and we can help you on that journey of identifying what's the right fit, what's best for your business. And we can even help you with implementing the NFRs for internal use, setting them up with best practices, and ensuring that you're comfortable with supporting a product you can stand behind. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. We're here to help you, and we're here to help you reduce risk in your business and find efficiencies and grow your business. Lean on us as you can. That brings us to the end. Do you have any notes to leave off on, James?
Oh, helps if I click on mute. What I want everyone to take away from this session, apart from the solutions that Sean took you through, there's obviously a lot of options around this, and what we want to keep reiterating through what me and Elliot talk about a lot around packaging up our cyber solutions is you've really got to understand what your clients need, where they're at, and take them on a journey through education, and not just aim for this perfection and not move the needle on cybersecurity, but actually set a baseline package out that covers a good amount of risk, and then just keep building on it. It's not a static process, this, and we as an industry need to get out of that keep the lights on mentality. We need to keep transforming the way our business operates, help enable our clients transform their businesses, and understand the changing landscape of cybersecurity, and just buy into the fact that it's a journey and it's going to be adaptation after adaptation. It's not the days of like when we first sold our first spam filters for 365 that we could leave it in for 7 to 10 years and we're right. These are the sort of things we need to be evolving and keeping up with, and we need to price things accordingly. So wherever you're at, it's going to be different compared to other providers, purely because of your clients and where they're at. So that's really what I want you to take away from all of this, if anything.
Yeah, so we do have a couple questions in the chat here that I do just want to address. Brett O'Connor has one step out about Proofpoint licensing. There are plus packages and there are non-plus packages. The reason I've highlighted the plus packages is due to Proofpoint's goal and moving away from the non-plus packages. The idea behind these plus packages is they're adding features as necessary to include things like protection from zero-day URLs and malware or attachments, as quite frankly, these other packages aren't cutting it, and that's opening risk into your business and your client's business to allow those through. I'm definitely happy to have a discussion with you if you'd like further information around those non-plus packages. But as we see Proofpoint trending, they'll be moving away from those packages entirely. Any questions you wanted to point out there, James?
Just on a few people are bringing up their different solutions. We're not here to sell you stuff if you've got great solutions that work for your clients and they're up to the modern standards. So if you're reducing risk and you're ticking a lot of the boxes of what we've highlighted today, don't change. It's work to change. But if you're not providing, you don't have a comprehensive solution and you need to review it, or even if you just want to talk to someone like Sean to compare the solution, that's where we're here to help. I get to say it because I'm director of academy and I don't really care about license sales, but that's what's important. It's really just, are you mitigating the risks for your clients at the risk profile that they're willing to engage in, and are you comfortable with your level of risk that you carry as their managed service provider? If you are, then all good. Keep going with what you're going. I just think it's an important thing we need to think about as owners and leaders inside MSPs. Is we are getting a lot of vendor agendas pushed at us, and we just want to give you the right information to help you make the right decisions for your business and your clients.
Absolutely, and to tag on to that, you may be happy with how things are in your security stack right now, and that's absolutely fine. We're not here to, completely displace everything. The idea here is to encourage you to be able to review those, identify when it's good, not great, or when it's just not cutting it anymore, and reach out to us for the conversations. Our goal here is to empower you to look after yourself and your clients. You may be happy. My job's not to make you not happy. Yeah, if you're happy, stay happy. Awesome, pricey but zero. Yeah, and just to tag on to what Tony said, there will never be a perfect security solution. He said here that Avanan is pricey but zero touch and nothing gets through. There's no such thing as a perfect solution. If any vendor ever comes to you and says it's perfect, I'd run for the hills. But put it in play, test it out, and that goes across all solutions. Test it out, try it, see what makes sense for you, and test it, and feel comfortable with it before you're going to roll it out to your clients, because you don't want to be the one dealing with their headaches if they're not happy.
And eat your own dog food.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about, I think it was Frank earlier on in the piece when I mentioned around the security awareness training, and he said that your own tech should be doing security awareness training and more to keep up with it. Most MSPs aren't doing that kind of thing. Most MSPs aren't rolling out the security solutions to themselves at a higher standard than they roll out to their clients. So we're at such a risk, being an MSP. We're the ones that hold the keys to the castle for many organisations. So we need to secure our in-house and be very professional and lift our own game internally, which then helps drive what we do with clients as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today and letting me talk your ear off. We will have the recording available to you if you want to rewatch at any point. And once again, if you do want to have a further discussion, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You have your account manager on speed dial, I'm sure. They love hearing your voice, and they can arrange a time that makes sense for us all to discuss it further. Thank you very much, everyone.